World War II was not a foregone conclusion. For the first 3 years of the conflict, from 1939 through 1941, the Axis powers, Germany, Japan, and Italy, were the undeniable masters of the globe. Germany's revolutionary doctrine of blitzkrieg, or lightning war, shattered conventional defenses. Poland fell in weeks, France in 6 weeks, and by mid-1941, Nazi flags flew from the Arctic Circle to the sands of North Africa. The audacious invasion of the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa, saw 3 million German soldiers smash through the borders, pushing within sight of Moscow. On the other side of the world, Japan's coordinated surprise attack on Pearl Harbor and subsequent rapid conquest of Southeast Asia established an empire covering 1/7 of the Earth's surface. By early 1942, the Axis controlled more territory than any alliance in human history. But at the very moment of their greatest expansion, the fatal strategic errors that would ensure their defeat were already being committed. The illusion of unstoppable conquest was about to meet the harsh reality of global power dynamics. The key to victory would not be found in brilliant battlefield maneuvers, but in something far colder and more mechanical: industrial capacity. The Allies, primarily the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom, were prepared to lose battles as long as they could win the war of attrition. As Hitler's armies stalled in the mud outside Moscow and Japanese carriers steamed across the Pacific, the foundations of the eventual Allied victory, American industry, Soviet depth, and British survival were already set in stone. The turning point was not a single day, but a cumulative period of decisive defeats for the Axis in 1942. 3 pivotal battles in 1942 simultaneously checked Axis expansion and crippled their most vital assets, shifting the momentum permanently toward the Allies. In the Pacific, the Japanese Navy was untouchable until June 1942. The Battle of Midway was a calculated ambush that destroyed the core of Japan's naval air power, 4 of its 6 major fleet aircraft carriers. Crucially, they lost not just the ships, but the hundreds of highly trained pilots and maintenance crews that were irreplaceable. After Midway, the offensive capacity of the Imperial Japanese Navy was permanently broken, forcing them onto the defensive in a slow, brutal campaign of island hopping. In North Africa, the brilliant German commander Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, stood on the doorstep of the vital Suez Canal. At the Second Battle of El Alamein in October 1942, British General Bernard Montgomery launched a massive attrition-based offensive. The German defeat here was strategically final. The Africa Corps was subsequently squeezed out of North Africa entirely, clearing the way for the later Allied invasions of Sicily and Italy. By far the most costly turning point was the Battle of Stalingrad on the Eastern Front. From August 1942 to February 1943, the battle for this single city consumed the German Sixth Army, an entire field army of over 300,000 men. The fighting was street by street, house by house, characterized by brutal close-quarters combat. When the Germans finally surrendered, it was a profound psychological and military blow. After Stalingrad, the Wehrmacht was in permanent retreat. The initiative belonged entirely to the Soviet Union. Together, these 3 battles demonstrated that the Axis lacked the resources, the manpower, and the economic depth to win a prolonged war against the combined might of their enemies. While the fighting raged in the East, the Western Allies, particularly the United States, were quietly winning the war on the assembly lines. President Franklin D. Roosevelt famously called for America to become the arsenal of democracy. The figures are staggering. The U.S. converted its immense industrial base almost overnight. Factories that once made cars, like those of Ford, began churning out B-24 Liberator bombers. Chrysler built tanks. By 1944, the U.S. was producing aircraft, over 90,000 planes per year. In 1 year, the U.S. manufactured more aircraft than Germany, Japan, and the U.K. combined. Ships. The Liberty Ship program was a masterpiece of mass production, launching thousands of cargo vessels, often in less than 2 months each, overcoming the German U-boat threat in the Atlantic. Vehicles. Millions of jeeps, trucks, and armored vehicles, providing the Allies with unprecedented mobility, a luxury the resource-starved Wehrmacht could only dream of. This colossal production was not just for U.S. forces. The Lend-Lease Act provided billions of dollars in war materials to the United Kingdom and, most critically, the Soviet Union. American-made trucks, tanks, aluminum, and vital foodstuffs poured into the Soviet Union through the Arctic convoys and Iran, sustaining the Red Army's logistical backbone. The key distinction was quality control and efficiency. Axis industries, constrained by raw materials and often focused on complex, over-engineered designs like Germany's heavy tanks, could never match the Allies' capacity for rapid mass production of reliable equipment. The sheer weight of Allied material production crushed the Axis war machine. The war was also won in the shadows, through revolutionary advances in science and intelligence. Code-breaking, ultra. In the UK, the team at Bletchley Park, led by mathematicians like Alan Turing, successfully broke the German Enigma code. This intelligence, dubbed Ultra, gave the Allies advance notice of U-boat movements, German tactical plans, and even Hitler's strategic intentions. This advantage was arguably the single most important factor in winning the Battle of the Atlantic. Radar. Developed in Britain, radar was instrumental in defending the island during the Battle of Britain and later used extensively on ships and aircraft to detect enemies in the air and at sea. It rendered surprise attacks far less effective. The jet engine and the rocket. While Germany pioneered the first operational jet fighter, the Me-262, and the V-2 ballistic missile, these technologies arrived too late and in too small a quantity to change the war's outcome. Instead, the Allied scientific effort culminated in the single most consequential technological achievement of the conflict, the atomic bomb. The Manhattan Project symbolized the peak of Allied scientific collaboration and industrial commitment, delivering a weapon that offered the means to end the brutal Pacific War without the predicted million casualties of a full invasion of the Japanese home islands. The Axis powers were ultimately defeated by their own flawed strategy and ideology. Germany's fatal decision. Hitler's decision to invade the Soviet Union in 1941 while still engaged with Britain was a profound strategic error, violating military doctrine against fighting a two-front war. Furthermore, his subsequent declaration of war on the United States after Pearl Harbor ensured that Germany would face the world's largest army, the Soviet, and its greatest economy, the American, simultaneously. Japan's underestimation of the U.S. Japanese military leaders believed that a surprise knockout blow at Pearl Harbor would cripple American morale and force a negotiated peace, allowing them to consolidate their gains. They grossly underestimated the American capacity for revenge, industrial recovery, and sustained brutal warfare. Ideology over pragmatism. Both the Nazi regime and Imperial Japan prioritized racial and political ideology over pragmatic military necessity. Hitler often interfered with his generals' plans, prioritizing the destruction of civilian populations and the ideological quest for Lebensraum, living space, over sound military logic. This led to disastrous decisions, particularly on the Eastern Front. Their brutality and ideological rigidity also precluded any effective alliances with the people they conquered, ensuring resistance movements were always working against them. No single Allied nation could have won the war alone. It was the strength of the coalition that proved insurmountable. The Soviet sacrifice. The USSR bore the brunt of the land war against Germany. Soviet casualties, both military and civilian, were staggering, totaling over 25 million lives. This immense sacrifice ensured that the Wehrmacht was constantly under pressure and that 3/4 of German combat divisions remained tied down on the Eastern Front until the very end. The Red Army ground down the Nazi war machine through sheer weight of numbers and iron determination. Western cohesion. Despite differences in strategy, such as arguments over the timing of the Second Front, the Big Three, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin, maintained a singular focus on achieving unconditional surrender. The combined operational planning for the invasions of North Africa, Italy, and finally D-Day demonstrated a level of military coordination the fragmented Axis command structure could never match. The liberation of Western Europe, spearheaded by the D-Day landings in June 1944, provided the final strategic squeeze. With the Soviets pushing relentlessly from the east and the Western Allies attacking from the west, Germany was caught in an inescapable vice. By 1945, the Axis had been reduced to defending their own shattered capitals with reserves of young boys and old men against armies that were better equipped, better fed, and technologically superior. The ultimate victory was not just a military triumph, but a testament to the power of a global alliance built on superior resources and an unshakable will to survive. The Allies won World War II because they understood, better than their enemies, that in a total war, the war of production is the war of attrition, and the war of attrition is the only war that truly matters.